Hi, everybody. Oh, thank you. Oh, yes. You're so kind. I am here to welcome everybody as well, and I want to just state for the record that the school committee has a very multifaceted, complex issue to consider over the next few months, as well as the city, as we try to navigate the conditions of our buildings, as well as maybe thinking about new building projects. So having your support at all stages is truly important to us. So it is our goal to create as much transparency as possible as to what the current state of our buildings are and where we're thinking about moving forward. The agenda for tonight is introductions. We'll talk about the existing facilities conditions, the observed deficiencies, so we all know what's going on there, the critical deficiencies, and the recommended upgrades of all the 4 buildings. And by the 4 buildings, you know that I mean the Kennedy, the Joyce, the Linscott, and the Alta Vista. The elementary school options and ECP options for district-wide impacts, and the middle school option district-wide impacts. Then we will open it up to questions and answers. So that's the agenda for this evening. I want to introduce Donna Danisco. Donna Danisco is the president of Danisco Designs. She is the author of the 2023 feasibility study for the city of Woburn. She is an expert in her field. She has built over 60 designed, you haven't built them, over 60 schools in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. She truly is an expert in this field, and we are truly blessed to have her expertise tonight. So I'll introduce Donna Danisco. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. A little humbled by that, but thank you, Ellen. We love what we do. We're invested in all of the communities throughout the Commonwealth, and we really feel as though we are part of every school system that we work with. This whole process actually began in 2020. You can see it started right before COVID and probably 2 weeks after the team that you see in the photo joined and walked all of the buildings to look at the deficiencies and the state of all of the buildings. COVID hit and schools were shut down, and so we began a delayed journey in completing the process. But the purpose was, at the very beginning, was to look at and monitor the facilities and to take a look and see what types of deficiencies there are, both in building and educational needs, and identify any anticipated replacements and upgrades. We spent probably well over a year looking at all of the schools, and you'll see running from left to right, just in alphabetical order, but we looked at all of the schools in the district. We then took a look and created categories of site and landscape, architectural, structural, mechanical, electrical, and technology. And we worked with the school department in evaluating and determining all of the needs. And to no surprise, right, you'll see in red the 4 schools that have not been upgraded since the early 2000s are the remaining schools that really need to be addressed. So just from a deficiency perspective, a building deficiency, not talking about programmatic needs and equity and parity with the other schools, just from a building perspective, back in 2023, we have not escalated the cost to today's numbers, but just to give you an idea, the Alta Vista, Joyce, Kennedy, and Linscott had significant needs and replacements. We were then asked to put in a priority list, a recommended urgent list. And so we did that as well to say, okay, what absolutely needs to be addressed? Not surprising, the middle schools are much larger and they required more work. But as you can see, even just addressing the urgent critical needs, such as a new roof, new mechanical systems or boiler replacements, parts, and things like that, you'll see that there was significant investment to maintain and continue with these buildings. We have a full report. I think it was 700, someone counted, I think, 766-page report. There's a whole section in the report related to the existing conditions, and we have all of the items identified and broken out. So feel free, I believe it's on the website, And you can take a look and see all the detail behind all of these numbers. And I do want to say we haven't been back since 2023. We do understand that the deficiencies have continued and some have gotten worse. So take that with a grain of salt as you're looking at the report. But this was important to determine and understand what it would take financially to maintain these buildings and bring them up to parity with the other schools. So the other part of the report talked about, okay, we know the Alta Vista, if we look at just the elementary schools, we know the Alta Vista and Linscott are the two remaining elementary schools that have not been modified or updated, and there was an earlier master plan, right, of combining the schools, such as the Goodyear, which combined the two schools, and then the Hurl-Wyman, of course, merging the Hurl and the Wyman school. The Shamrock, you'll see the Reeves, Shamrock, and White have all been updated in the early 2000s. The Goodyear 2011, and the Hurl-Wyman most recent in 2018. So the remaining two North Woburn schools, very small, very outdated. We spent a lot of time not looking at just the deficiencies of the building, but we looked at the educational components, the programs, the spaces, and how they do not meet the parity and equity of all of your updated schools. So when we looked at all of the schools, or those two, we also looked at the early childhood program. It's currently at Reeves and Shamrock. It continues to grow. It is a requirement by the state that you have to support these students. You do need this program. And as it grows, it's also putting pressure on the general classrooms at the Reeves and the Shamrock. We looked at the special education sub-separate and multilingual programs. Those two also continue to grow, and they reduce available general classrooms throughout the district. So what we wanted to do was try to make sure that we could incorporate the early childhood program, make sure that the special education programs, the multilingual programs, have the appropriate spaces and can be supported throughout the district. As we did that, we started looking at addressing the needs at the Alta Vista and where the early childhood program is best suited and how we can have a permanent home for it in one location. The full report has many, many different options, but it has been narrowed down to what we're showing you tonight. So the options might skip a little bit. But option one was doing very similar to what the Goodyear did in the Hurl-Wyman, was to consolidate the two North Woburn schools, the Alta Vista and the Linscott, combining them to a 3 classroom per grade school for about the same number of students as the Goodyear and Hurl-Wyman, of about 410 students, of about 72,000 square feet. We looked at both sites to determine what was most appropriate, and this is the Alta Vista site, and you can see what's dotted in the top of the screen that's where the existing school is. And we are confident that we could place a school down to the page south of the site. While the existing school remains in operation, a new school could be built. When the new school is complete, we can demolish the existing school and then actually create a nice field in its place. We spent some time talking about what are the benefits, what are the pros and cons of each of these options. This option replaces, of course, the 2 remaining older elementary schools and creates parity for all of the students throughout Woburn. The Linscott school would remain. It could be either turned back over to the city, or it could be used for the central offices or for other uses. Another benefit would be it obviously eliminates the needs of investing in the required repairs at the 2 schools. And by merging the 2, it really reduces operating costs. Disadvantage here is that we're not addressing the early childhood program, which would still remain at the Reeves and the Shamrock. So since COVID, costs of construction have increased significantly. A school this size, when we did the Hurl Wyman, was, I think it was around $30 million, and today's dollars, a new school for about the same size is approximately $64 million. These are today's dollars, 2025, so when we start thinking about the future and escalating the costs, right now our cost estimators are saying assume about a 4% escalation annually. The construction cost is about $64 million. A total project cost is about $80 million, and that would address your two remaining schools, creating equity educationally for all the students in Woburn. We then started thinking about the placement of the early childhood program, and ideally you want it to be in one location. To have it separated just creates issues with, you have students in two locations and you have to have oversight and supervision. Bringing them all together and having all the support spaces all in one location really would be ideal, both for the students and for the district itself. So here again, we looked at, is it even feasible to add approximately 30,000 square feet for the early childhood program? This is assuming about 15 classrooms plus all of their support spaces, and onto the addition or the expansion of the Alta Vista, new Alta Vista and Linscott School. So we did test it. It definitely fits. Again, Alta Vista can remain in operation while the new school is being constructed. Again, once it's demolished, the Linscott and the Alta Vista students and the early childhood students would all be moved to this one site, one new school. In addition to all of the advantages that I just said, the additional advantage is that this would relocate the early childhood from the Reeves, allowing those classrooms to be reverted back to general classrooms for the future growth that continues. A disadvantage is, of course, it just costs more. The cost here is approximately $88 million for construction, with about $110 million project cost. We were also then looking at where else could we put the early childhood program. Just the early childhood. What if the focus is turned maybe to the middle schools, or other resources need to be put elsewhere? So we were asked, could we put an early childhood program, say, at the Joyce? And this is showing that it can be done. If the Joyce does rise to the top, that it is a replacement of the Joyce, we're showing that you could add an early childhood program attached to either a new Joyce, or it could be added to the existing Joyce. But basically, the point of all of this was just to say, what is the cost just to build a new early childhood center? So here, for about 30,000 square feet, it's about $27 million for a construction cost, with a $33 million project cost. And the advantages of this, of course, are bringing the early childhood program together, and it would provide additional capacity and flexibility at the Reeves. Disadvantage here, of course, is you still have the two North Woburn elementary schools that still need to be addressed. So here are the summary of options. You can see it's 1, 2, and 5. 3 and 4 have been eliminated. There were other considerations thrown out there, but these were the best solutions that rise to the top. You can see addressing the Alta Vista and Linscott schools are approximately $80 million. Adding the early childhood program is about $110 million. And then if you wanted to do a standalone facility for the early childhood program, it's about $33, $34 million. Delayed. We did a very similar exercise for the middle schools. We looked at both the buildings themselves, but also the educational program and how well these schools support today's educational program. They're both dated schools. They weren't built with today's education in mind, but both of them have some benefits as it relates to the schools themselves. The number of classrooms are adequate at both schools. All staff have their own homeroom, which is wonderful. At the Joyce, the size of the classrooms are adequate for the programs that occur in them. The classrooms at the Kennedy are actually undersized. They're smaller than what they are at the Joyce. You'll see that the science classrooms are undersized at both schools. Special education spaces are inadequate when they were built. Small group instruction, pull-out instruction was not really part of the design or the pedagogy of the time. The library at the Joyce is undersized. The cafeteria requires significant renovations. It's a large space, but it is extremely dated and really needs to be upgraded. You have a field house, which is wonderful. You have a nice auditorium, just needs to be updated. And within the Joyce itself, the central administration offices are there, and they occupy about 14,000 square feet. At the Kennedy, the library is adequate. The cafeteria, similar to the Joyce, requires a lot of updates and renovations, but the size itself is adequate. The gym is adequate, and you have an auditorium as well at the Kennedy. So basically, both schools have significant building deficiencies that are required, like now and then into the future. But you'll see that the science labs and classrooms at the Kennedy, as well as special education spaces, are all undersized. The Joyce also has undersized library, special education, as well as the science labs. And again, both schools require the facility upgrades. So we started looking at how much would it cost, what are the options of maintaining both schools, how much would that cost? If we relocated the district central administration from the Joyce, right, how much space would that give, and how would that help with program needs? What if we just add a new science wing onto the Kennedy? Because that's one of the major driving forces and needs at the Kennedy. Something that was a little foreign at first. If you have to spend so much money on both schools and the disruption of the students and staff while this work is taking place, what if we consolidate them? What would that look like? So we examined that as well, and then they said, and then the other thought was, well, if our efforts and money are going to be at the middle schools, can we add an early childhood program onto one of the middle schools? So option one is looking at the two schools independently, maintaining their own identities, and staying at their existing sites. So what we were able to do is identify adding science labs onto the Kennedy. That would be easy to do, and there would be limited disruption to the students. It would be about a 10,000 square foot addition. We then looked at, okay, Joyce is a little more complicated, but if we asked the school central offices to move, what could we do with that 14,000 square feet of space? It's what we call space mining, right? We're taking space that exists and repurposing it and making it into education for educational benefits. And you'll see how what's hatched are the areas that we would refurbish or repurpose. And then, again, on the lower level, the media center could be expanded, the cafeteria would be renovated. But we would be able to take a lot of the space that's currently being used for central office and repurpose that into educational space, which would be great. We would also be able to create smaller spaces to support the multilingual program as well as special education needs and create a new media center. With any discussion related to the joist, just so you know, the hockey rink and field house would remain. That wouldn't be part of any of the scope. So thinking about option one and what are the benefits, right? It provides the science labs appropriately sized and new science labs at the Kennedy. It addresses special education spaces and or general classrooms to spaces to support the students at the Kennedy. It provides an appropriately sized library, additional special education spaces, additional general classroom or support spaces at the Joyce. It provides flexibility to accommodate larger than typical grades. It addresses the facility needs and repairs at both of the schools. And from what we had heard originally is that it does maintain the two schools, and that could be a benefit. The use of the district central admin for swing space during construction would help with the disruptions of the Joyce. So we were thinking what we would do is we would relocate central administration, reconfigure those spaces, which give us about 10 classrooms. And we would move kids from the general classrooms that are currently there into that space. And then we would renovate those classrooms. And then when those are done, we would move students from another portion of the building into the renovated classrooms. So you could see it would be multiple phases, but it certainly could be done. The disadvantages are we haven't identified where central administration would go. There isn't any surplus buildings in the district for them to be relocated to. And as I was just explaining how the construction phasing would occur, it certainly would extend the disruption at both schools during construction due to all of the repairs and upgrades. And then you would maintain the same costs operationally to maintain two schools. So when you look at it, we've actually broken it out. The Kennedy is about $55 million. It's to add on for the science wing, but it's also to upgrade all of the deficiencies that currently exist at the school. The Joyce is about the same, $57 million. So when you add them together, it's about $112 million construction, and then approximately $140 million in project costs. What isn't included in this is the relocation of the central offices. And we just did a quick analysis of space, office space within the city itself, and based on the needs of about 14,000 square feet, it was coming up at around $525,000 a year just to rent space. Chances are you have better connections than we do in the city of Woburn, and it might cost less, but we just didn't want to not think about that because that would be an added cost to the project. Another consideration was, well, okay, maybe we can just consolidate the two schools. What would that look like? How about if we just do an addition and then renovate the Joyce? So what we've done, again, thinking about the existing school will remain in operation during construction. How can we do this in a way that the school can function and we can build, and then we would move students around? So we would take over the central administration space. We would add a wing to it so we could do this construction all at once. And then, as I was saying, for option one, we would relocate students in these spaces into the new wing, and then we would be able to renovate and update the spaces, mechanical systems, fire protection, electrical technology, everything that is required to bring the building up to code. So this would be a 3-story addition. Again, central office would have to be relocated. We would update the field house in this configuration, just the field house, not the ice rink. And this would be approximately 1,080 students combined for one middle school. So we're thinking about the advantages and disadvantages. This really bringing everyone together creates equity for all middle school students. It provides the appropriately sized science labs, additional spaces for special education and other general education programs or support. It provides an appropriately sized library, special ed spaces, and then it provides flexibility to accommodate larger than typical grades. It addresses the facility upgrades and repairs at the Joyce, and it really would eliminate the need to address the facility and repairs over at the Kennedy. The disruption of the Joyce would be not as bad because we're creating a 3-story new classroom wing where we would be able to utilize that as part of what we would consider the swing space for the school. So it really would help with disruption. And then operationally, once the school is up, the operational cost for the district would be reduced because now you only have one building, one school, one administration, and you would not be having to duplicate a lot of the operational costs. Disadvantages is the central administration would need to be relocated. Perhaps they could go to the Kennedy. That's an option. They would need one small portion of the Kennedy. So what we did is we just carried that same cost to rent annually, but I'm sure there are options to relocate central administration. You would have some additional costs related to busing to bring all of the students to the Joyce, and then some of the playing fields at the Joyce that would be lost could be relocated to the Kennedy School site, and that would give you the same number of fields. They would just not be at the Joyce. The cost here, $170 million for construction and about $212 million for project cost. And then from the central administration, there are certainly options. Then we said, okay, that's a lot of construction. It's a lot of disruption. What's the cost for new? And in some instances, a renovation and addition can prove to be cost effective, and in other instances, it's as much and sometimes more because of the duration and the phasing and the disruption that occurs. What we did here is we looked at how can we do this that would be least disruptive to the Joyce students. The Kennedy students would remain at the existing school during construction. So what we did is we actually looked at, you can see what's dashed in here, that's the existing Joyce school. And we said, okay, well, we could actually almost flip it and build around the existing field house and the ice skating rink. It would be a 2 and 3 story school, about 210,000 square feet. We would renovate the field house, leave the ice rink the way it is. The central administration would be relocated, but this would accommodate your 1,000 or 1,100 students for all of your middle schools. So very similar to the other option of bringing everyone together, it creates the equity for all middle school students, and it provides all of the appropriate spaces educationally. It also allows you, you don't need to, it eliminates the need for repairs and upgrades at both schools, and it really will create, will be the least disruptive to the students at the Joyce School. And then again, right, they'll stay in the existing school. When the new school is built, students will be moved over, and then the existing school will be demolished. Again, district administration would need to find a new location, or we could add on to this. If that would be the direction that makes the most sense, we could add the central administration onto this option. And again, similar to the last option, you would have additional costs relative to bringing all students to the middle school. And then similar, you would lose some play fields, but you could make those up at the Kennedy School. Here, the costs are about $168 million for construction, $210 million for the overall project. So when you look at them and you have to address both schools, I'm just going to go to the project costs. It's about $137 million, extremely disruptive. You're still not addressing all of your needs, but you would be bringing the schools up to, you would be updating and addressing all of the deficiencies in the schools and addressing the critical, important educational components such as science labs and some special education and classrooms. If you merge the two schools and you did a renovation and addition, it's approximately $212 million. And if you just built a new school next to the field house and the rink, it's approximately $210 million. And just, these are today's numbers, so obviously they will change, but this just really is an order of magnitude cost at this point, just so everyone can really understand the costs associated with each of the options. So hopefully, if you have any questions, please ask questions tonight. We're here to receive your input. The next steps will be to evaluate the benefits of each of the options and the impact to the overall community. We're really looking to determine what the best solutions are that meet the educational facility needs of all four schools. And then ultimately, with the community's input, the school committee will be submitting what's called a statement of interest to the Mass School Building Authority, who provides funds to all the communities in the Commonwealth. You have to be selected, but you could receive up to 50% of the cost of the project from the state if you're selected into the program. So tonight, really, the question is, we're here to listen to you, to answer any questions you have. Feel free to voice your opinion. I think there's going to be a survey that's going to be open through the fall, September. There's a QR code that will take you to the survey. Feel free. It's a very short survey. I think there's 3 questions on it. We really are trying to understand what's important to you all and what you feel are the most important needs for the community. It's a multiple choice. You can pick one or you can pick all, right? So please give us your input. And there's also an opportunity for you to also give us, leave a question if you have any questions or if you have any additional comments. But with that, we'd love to open this up to anyone. Yes. Can we run a microphone to you? Would that be okay? They'll just turn it on. No.
What would happen to the Kennedy School if we build a consolidated? Could that be the district offices?
Yes, just like if the Linscott and Alta Vista merged, the Linscott would be supplemental or surplus. I hate to use the word surplus, but the Kennedy as well. If everyone went to the Joyce, the Kennedy School would also be available. It could be for a number of things, right? It has a gym, it has a nice auditorium, it could be used for a number of opportunities within the city, but it does need upgrades, so you're going to probably want to weigh how much you want to invest in the building. But yes, central office could absolutely go there.
What? I need the steps.
First of all, thank you for the presentation. I know it's a small amount of work. Thank you to the committee to put that together. This might be less a question for you and maybe a question
Well, we did look at the old Wyman, and it actually does not accommodate, so we didn't look at the castle, right? We just looked at the annex or the addition, because the castle requires so much work to bring it up to code and to be able to be used for educational purposes. But the Wyman School we looked at, and it won't support the program. What you're doing with it is, I don't know if that was part of the question, but we did look at it.
If all the middle school goes to Joyce, what about the traffic impact on Willow Street?
Yeah, that's, I think everyone heard. The question was, if everyone moves to the Joys, how does that impact traffic in the neighborhood? It certainly would add additional traffic through the neighborhood. We have accommodated a significant amount of parking and drop-off areas to greatly improve how it currently works right now. So to get the cars off the roads and on and into the site, we would want to definitely do a full traffic analysis to make sure and understand where everyone's coming from and how best to create enough queuing on site as the parents drop off the students. Well, I'll just repeat it. That's fine.
So besides that footprint right now, obviously we have to spin around the proposed location. Besides traffic and parking, what are looking for supplies?
So during construction. Okay, so the question was, in addition to the traffic in the neighborhood and buses and traffic circulation on site, where would we have all of our deliveries and receiving during construction as we're doing it? We would have to look closely. We do this all the time. The existing building would still be in operation. So we would continue to use the parking lot here, and we would have to make accommodations for receiving and deliveries. We're actually on the opposite side, and so it would minimally impact what goes on at the school. We would have to study parking during construction. That's one thing that we would have to consider. We haven't gotten into that deeply to determine how we could best accommodate parking. The parking would stay where it currently is, and we would be needing some of the parking that kind of extends down here, but for the most part, what currently exists now would remain during construction. Renovation addition is much more challenging, because we are taking over the parking lot to build onto it. So you can see this really kind of isolates what goes on at the existing school. There's a lot of detail that still needs to be vetted, obviously. This would be done in conjunction with any solution that is brought forward. But this is something that we do all the time. We address renovations and additions, new construction, renovations in an existing school with creating swing space within the school, as we were talking about for option 1 for the middle schools. So there are certainly ways to address all of these, and we would just need to vet it and flesh it all out once a preferred solution is selected. Yes? Any of these options. So the question was, what is my best guess? Thank you. No pressure. For when any of these options would be completed, right? So from the decision, right? Whenever that decision is, we need approximately a year and a half for study and to arrive at a total project cost, which would then be brought back to make sure, and this is also following the Mass School Building Authority's process, because hopefully they will be your partner. That's really critical. But it's about a year and a half to 2 years for study and schematic design to arrive at a total project cost. Vetting out all of these questions that you have this evening, it would be approximately 12 to 15 month design process, and then at least a 2-year construction process. So who wants to do the math with me? It's about 6 years? It's about 6 years. Yes. That's a really good question. The question was, do we anticipate or expect any environmental impacts to any of these options? The answer would be no. We have studied and made sure that we are respectful to the wetlands. We are respectful to any conservation land that surrounds any of the sites, and that any option that we've put forward will not have any impact environmentally. Yes. So the question was, if MSBA says you can only pick one, does that mean you only get either middle schools or elementary schools, or is there a way that the city could take care of all of your needs? I think that's what you said. I am not the person to answer that question. I can give it a shot. You want to give it a shot? Okay. So the answer is, you're correct. MSBA will say, okay, you have a lot of need, but there are a lot of districts that have a lot of needs. So pick your most urgent need. So if you say you take the middle schools and say, okay, you know what, it's the most expensive, and MSBA is going to participate in that and give me about 50% of the overall cost. That would be great, right? So your 210 million then becomes 100 million or 110 million. And then, the question is, can you use that money to help offset the elementary school costs, or do you then just go back out to the community and say, okay, thank you for your support for this, but now we need to do the elementary schools. But you do have that money that you are receiving from MSBA that could be applied to the other project, is one way of looking at it. Yes? Thank you. I'm sorry, Mr. Curran, right? The people at home aren't really able to hear you, so I'm going to pass the microphone. We all hear you just fine, but for those at home.
So to break it,
There you go.
you break it down by what people really care about is what's this going to do to my tax rate? That's what people care about. So there's a way to break it out so you can figure that out. And you can show that if you wait for the MSBA for 12 years, you're going to pay just as much, and you're going to wait 12 years before you get that next school. So you can break it out, figure out what the cost is going to be and what the impact is to the taxpayer. I've done it several times, both here in Woburn and in Billerica. And then it becomes more digestible for the public because they understand what the impact is to their tax bill. So that is, that's intimidating, and especially for the people over here that probably want me to shut up. But if you look at the debt schedule for the city of Woburn, it's a declining debt schedule, and if you do it the right way, it won't have an adverse impact on the tax rate if you do it the right way. You won't get money back that you might have gotten if you did nothing, but doing nothing just lets the infrastructure decline. So you have to invest in the infrastructure, so it makes a lot of sense to do that. And I'll end with this. This building here was built for $76 million. It opened in 2006. In Billerica, we built a school that opened in 2020. It was 5,000 square feet smaller than this. It was $176 million. So the longer you wait, the more it goes up. That was $100 million, and that school in Billerica could not be built for $300,000 today. So the cost of waiting is very heavy. So I think that it's important for the town to pick a plan and put a financial plan together and sell it to the public.
Mr. Carl, I'm going to ask you to pass the microphone.
I understand that the MSBA funding we can only use to build one new school at a time. Could we use MSBA funding to repair schools while the other school is being built?
So MSBA has two programs. One is what they call core program, which is to address both the building and the educational needs, right, for your school. So that's what the Earl Wyman and the Goodyear were done under. And that would support any of these large projects. If you decided that you wanted to keep the Alta Vista and it needs a new roof, you could submit a repair project to the MSBA, and they could participate in a new roof to support your school, or mechanical systems, or maybe windows. The challenge with that is once you do that, and you want to go back, although maybe 12 years later, and ask for another core program, capital project, they would subtract what they've already participated in. But you could, and nothing also precludes you from going and actually addressing, but these repairs for the MSBA aren't going to mitigate all of the deficiencies in all of your, in Alta Vista and Linscott, or at the Joyce, or at, right? So they'll do boilers or mechanical systems, roofs, and windows. That's it. So you won't get, a whole new HVAC system. You won't get, right? It will just be repairs too, and it would be just a new roof, right? So you could submit. My other thought, as you say this, let me just go back to here.
I was thinking more in terms of repairing the middle schools than the elementary.
The middle schools would be the same, right? Once you say, okay, I just want a new roof, right? That still doesn't take any other of the repairs and upgrades that are required, and it certainly won't address your educational needs. But while you're saying that, right, we did, as part of the master plan as requested, and it's good to start thinking about this in the future, you have all of these new schools. They're great. But you still need to maintain them, right? So you should be, we put together what we call a capital improvement plan to kind of lay out the investments that you should be making with two-year schools over the next 20 years, right? A roof lasts 20 years. So this building was built 20 years ago, right? So now you're going to need to start thinking about, okay, well, should we squirreling some money away to deal with some of the improvements that you're going to need at all of these schools? But that's not to say you can, if you go to mechanical systems, right, well, Linscott's a bad example, right, all of these. But if you decide that you need a new roof, that would be under architectural. And one or two of these that you know, right? Malcolm White, I think, probably does need a new roof. Shamrock needs a new roof. You could submit that to MSBA and just say, hey, will you participate and support us with a new roof? And the answer would be yes. And that does not preclude you from doing a core program for the other schools. It's a great way to get some support and relief from the MSBA, independent of the other major projects that you're doing. So
They do not reimburse for modulars. They would not entertain an SOI for an independent building specific just.
right. So just to restate, it's okay. Sorry, we just have people watching at home. Is that the City of Boston is doing something very similar to this. They are submitting a statement of interest for core building projects, but also looking for what's called, thank you, I couldn't find the word, accelerated repairs, which is roofs, boilers, windows, simultaneously. And thank you. Your point's well taken. Just to emphasize, MSBA will not pay for swing space. So if you have to replace all of your windows, you know you're not going to be able to replace all of your windows over an 8-week summer session in some schools. So you would have to be careful in how you phase that. Swing space is never paid for or reimbursed by MSBA. And what was the other thing that you said that was helpful? Oh, the single ECP. So MSBA does support early childhood program or an ECP as it is attached to another school, whether it be an elementary or a middle school. They support that, but they would not just pay for an early childhood program separate from any, if it's not connected with another school. Yes. Oh, we're going to get you the microphone. Sorry. You're getting your steps in. Sorry.
So on that, the ECP and attaching it to a school, could we attach the ECP to the consolidated Kennedy Joyce as in option 3? Like, is there space to actually fit in an ECP at that site?
Yes. Yep. That was, it was a test fit for us just to make sure, but yes, if you did a new combined Kennedy and Joyce, shoot, I went too far. Here you go. So here, you know, this could be, and we would still need to study this more, but we wanted to demonstrate that this could be done. This part of the building, as is what I showed you, if it was just a combined Joyce and Kennedy school, and then you could have the early childhood program added to it. We thought, actually, again, it has to be studied in so much more depth, but this could be almost a standalone, separate drop-off, pickup, whatever. But yes, it absolutely could be connected. And we don't have the cost, but, you know, if it's 30, it sounds awful, like just add another $33 million to the cost. But yes, yeah. And we're finding MSBA is supporting early childhood programs as long as they are in conjunction with another school project, because you're really addressing some elementary school needs as well. So it's a win-win to support an early childhood program, and it's mandated by the state, so they feel compelled, but not as a standalone. So thank you for saying that. Anthony, is there anyone online that might have any questions? Sorry, he's the man behind the curtain. No. Great. Yes. Hold on. I'm gonna ask you just for the benefit of the people at home. I'm sorry.
When you're talking about adding ECP onto the different schools, are you considering the office needs, the nursing needs, cafeteria, gym, playground, OT, PT, speech, all of those things that go with the ECP?
Yes.
Okay.
We did an in-depth analysis, so it's not just the classrooms that are needed. It's also, as you mentioned, occupational, so people, right, so there's a lot of support services that are required for this early childhood program, including a motor room, including maybe a director for, right, administration. So yeah, we did the whole program, and we were coming up with about 32,000 square feet. Yeah, thank you.
On top of that, parking, you heard that parking is a big issue or concern. Would there be enough parking at either of these locations?
Yes, thank you. So parking, as we consider the early childhood program, or ECP, everyone knows ECP, I don't need to say the whole thing. Yeah, you'll see we like doubled this. We totally understand the needs for the early childhood program and all of the support that these students need, right? That it's two people for every classroom, plus all of the support spaces and everything, yeah. Again, we'd want to study it more and make sure that this is the best location. It's interesting, some people, last time we were here, they said, you know, oh my goodness, look at this cute little elementary school here, right? This is a 3-story building, like Hurl, Wyman, and Goodyear. And this makes sense. And it preserves a lot of open space, right? Here, we said, okay, well, could we fit, ideally, you would want the ECP on one floor, right? Ideally. And so you'll see that we were able to accommodate the ECP on the first floor with the cafeteria and support spaces for the entire school. And then, coincidentally, all of the program needs for the K through 5 fit on the second floor of this building. But it could be 3 stories. You could have a 2-story ECP. We haven't really gotten into all of the analysis and the pros and cons of each of those, but we were trying to be as thoughtful as we could at this phase. Yes? The question was assuming 15 classrooms, yes. So the question was, this is based on 15 classrooms. The current need is about 15 classrooms. If the ECP is not selected as one of the priorities, and then in 12 years it was addressed, how many classrooms will we need, or by the time it gets done, through the MSBA. I think when we did the timeline, submitting the statement of interest for 26, we thought it would be done long before 12 years. So if it was your priority, whether attached to the middle school or attached to the elementary schools, right, if that was part of the priority, and you were selected the first round with MSBA, it would definitely be done within 12 years. But your point is well taken. This was done 2 years ago, 2023, and we were like, oh, we trying to project into the future. We said 15. Well, guess what? Today you're at 14 or something like that. So we would want to make sure that we have sufficient space for growth and when the doors open. Yeah, you're right. Yes. The question was, in this particular scheme, where would the playgrounds go? Well, we have the field, which we understand is not the playgrounds. We would need to locate separate playgrounds for both the early childhood program, should have its own playground, in addition to the school itself should have its own. So, maybe some of it is we reconfigure the parking lot, right? We would also want to do a traffic study, and understand where people are coming from, how best to access and enter the site, make sure that we have sufficient circulation on the site to have queuing on the site. So we did not get into that deep of a dive on this. If it does go with a 3-story, right, there's more room, but again, these were sort of what we call test fits, just to make sure that the sites could accommodate this type or size of building. Yes. So the question was, if we went with the 15 classrooms for ECP, this would be that it would be partial day, not full day, pre-K. And the answer is correct. I think I saw a hand and it went down over in that corner. Is everyone good over there? So maybe someone asked the same question. All right. And I think, as again, this started in 2020. The educational component, as we looked at the deficiencies from an educational perspective, was 2023. Things might have shifted from when we completed the master plan to where we are now, such as the ECP, and those needs have even grown more than what we anticipated. So we would definitely, and especially if you're part of the MSBA program, would have to go through this whole process one more time to make sure they're in agreement with the enrollment, to make sure that they agree with the programs, and make sure that your special education is being addressed appropriately. So this was, again, master plan, big picture, looking at parity, equity, and making sure that the spaces do meet today's guidelines, which we are using MSBA's as today's standards and guidelines. But we would definitely want to, we're not going to, if someone says, okay, let's go with the middle schools, we're not going to start tomorrow. We would want to do a revisit to all of this to see if anything's changed over the past couple of years.
That's a difficult question to answer because the way early childhood works is students come in on their 3rd birthday, it's rolling. So you can anticipate that you will have approximately 200 students in the program, but it's rolling as the children age in.
So the question was, how many students are at the Alta Vista and Linska combined today? I think the question was. I think we're
Is
doing.
there around there? I can get a more accurate answer. 400 and,
No, they're probably like a little under 2 and a little over 2. So,
I would say, around 400.
yeah, around 400, like probably like 190, 250.
So I have a related question around those numbers and what we're planning for, both for this K-5 building, the ECP, and the 15 classrooms, as well as the middle school. These numbers are all what we have today, more or less. And there's been a lot of discussion about how our schools are changing, their needs are changing, our student enrollment had a big growth last year or the year before. And so maybe the question isn't so much about how we definitively plan that, what we know the future to be, because we can't plan for that, but sort of you are very familiar with the process, sort of how does the process build that in? So as we move forward through the process, if we do have a big housing development open in North Woburn, for example, how does this plan adjust for that? And are there sites, say, for attaching the ECP, whether the school needs to grow before we put shovels in the ground, or the ECP needs to grow? If there's a site that's really tight with the fit, and maybe that's not a great match because it's perfectly fit and we don't have space. So maybe a little bit about the process and how we would adjust if we have growth in the next couple years.
Yeah, thank you. Again, a couple of years ago is what we were doing, basing it on what we knew at the time. Another look at enrollment and anticipated building in the city would be really important. I know the school department has to think about this day in and day out and anticipate, right? So we would work closely with the school department to make sure that we're accommodating for any growth in the city. If you're part of the Mass School Building or MSBA program, they will do their own enrollment analysis. And so they will look at the district as a whole. If it's the middle schools, well, that's easy. If we're looking at elementary schools, it's a different conversation, but they'll look at your whole district, they'll look at your enrollment, and then they would make sure that the new school could support the anticipated growth. The other thing that we do typically do, to your point, is we look at expansion, right? If we put the school here and growth continues, how do you add on to it? And so, again, these were just test fits, but in this instance, and we are thoughtful as we go through this, right? You would be able to extend this option. Full transparency, my firm did the Hurl-Wyman, right? And so we did look at where, if you wanted to add on to the school, how could you do that? And we thought about that as we laid out the school and made sure that there was room to support that growth. So that would be very similar here. We would design this in a way that the end stair could easily be removed, and then you could extend the classrooms, right? And you always want to think about that and how you can expand in the future. I think a lot of times what you'll find is a small addition is very expensive, but you want to think about and anticipate that. It certainly beats having to go out and build a whole new school if you just need 5 or 4, 6 classrooms. What you do want to be mindful of as you think about that growth is that the supporting spaces can also support the additional students, such as make sure your cafeteria is large enough to support additional students, or be thinking about you may need one additional lunch period and things like that. But for the most part, we do take that into consideration. Thank you for your comment. Yes.
I'm coming.
That's okay. Sorry.
Thank you. In the original study, was there any review of the possibility of a standalone ECP without the MSBA, so that we could look at ways of funding that as a community ourselves? And then looking farther out over the 12 years about combining the elementary schools for those North Woburn kids who have waited way too long and addressing the needs of the middle schools?
What we did to respond to that was, all we did was we identified the space needs for the ECP. Now, it sounds like that we probably need to, maybe it was a little undersized at the time, but we tried to give you an idea of the cost, and so we can think about where we could put it as a standalone. We were looking at just what the sites that we were studying, the 4 school sites, right? So we're saying you needed about 30,000 square feet, and it will cost you approximately $34 million. But we didn't identify a site that was not attached to one of the existing buildings. But that easily can be done. Maybe there are other sites that are maybe more central that are available for only a 30 or 40,000 square foot building instead of a large 100,000 square foot building.
Thank you.
Oh, we have one more question now. No, I love it. Thank you for coming and participating.
Question regarding the definition of deficiency. I know that was used for all 4, but I'm wondering if you could help us kind of see if, among the 4 schools, how would you rank the deficiencies that are tied to public safety concerns? Which school should be prioritized based on that?
That's not fair. But the middle schools have the most need. Obviously, they're also largest. You're addressing, all of the students when you're looking at it from a parity or equity position. But Alta Vista, since we looked at it back in 22 or 23, has also really declined. So it's a little hard for us to say today where your needs. From a building perspective is one conversation, and then from a program perspective, it's a different conversation. But suffice to say, all 4 schools really need some attention. And I guess that it really wouldn't be our place to say which is the worst. I wouldn't, The report's there, though. It's all in the report.
Sorry, I just have a quick question. If we were to build an ECP, wherever that place ended up attached to, whatever it ended up to, we would be freeing up 15 classrooms, which sounds like a lot. I know you said we would transition them to general education classes, but what does that in practical terms mean in terms of that space being used? What does that allow us to do in those spaces?
Oh, I'm sorry, at the Reeves is what you're saying.
Reeves and Shamrock, I assume?
Reeves and Shamrock, yes. So the Reeves and Shamrock, that gives you the extra flexibility for more students in each of the schools. I believe the Reeves is running out of space and as the early childhood program needs another classroom that displaces more students, say a kindergarten classroom or a 5th grade classroom, or that just means you're going to have more students in the classrooms that you have, right? So those needs are there as the ECP continues to take general classrooms. It will reduce the number of classrooms available for homerooms or classrooms. I don't know if you two, is that accurate? Special education. Okay. Okay. Reallocated. So my understanding is, and just to, yeah, I'm going to ask you to.
No, just the final redistricting plan that was voted on last year was based off of all of those classrooms being reallocated as general education classrooms. So the final redistrict map that was determined was for parity, was for all of the things that we talked about, was for that to be the end distribution when those 15 classrooms were reallocated. So that is the plan.
So the plan is assuming that the ECP
The
is
final redistricting.
relocated.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyone else? This is the,
I just want to clarify a couple of the other ECP questions because I know there's been a lot of them tonight. So I just opened up and took a snapshot of a day in the spring, and we had 238 students enrolled. So I think one of the very first questions was if we had looked at the old Lyman way back when. And just as a perspective, 238 students is larger than our elementary schools. It's a large program at this point. And with respect to a lot of the questions about not having growth, and yes, this was done a few years ago, and part of what has to be considered when you think about early childhood is over the past year, I believe we had 4 classrooms at the Shamrock and we ran 9 at the Reeves. And 7 of the 9 classrooms were what we call integrated classrooms. And so I think one of the questions and things that people maybe are wondering is, would this allow us to go to a full day model for preschool? And the answer is no. These don't take into account changing the models in that sense. And the reason is because if you had 7 integrated classrooms that run a morning and an afternoon session, in order to have those run full day, you would need presently with what we have another 7 rooms, which is a large footprint. In addition to that, you would need another 7 teachers, and you would need another 14 paraprofessionals, and you would need related service providers to service all of those students as well, and with that comes more parking, et cetera. So I just want to make the point that it wasn't a lack of planning. It was that when we were looking at this project, really the only way to consider it was to work off of the model that we had, and this years ago was projected at 15, and at the time I think we had maybe 10 or 11. And so that's sort of just how we got to where we're at. The early childhood is really a complex situation.
Thank you. No, that's good.
Could having a full day, though, attract more students so that you have the proper ratios of students? And could that also allow us for more revenue for tuition?
yes to both.
Right.
So yes, with revenue, but you have to be careful when you consider that as you're bringing in all of these students, your expenses are also going up significantly because our little, our tiniest learners do require an awful lot of staffing. So you wouldn't reap, the revenue I think would be offset by a lot of the needs that would come in with having, if we have 238 now and you doubled 7 of those rooms that have 15 students, what would come with it would also come, with expenses.
Just a point of clarification on the middle school option 1. If we were to go that route, and we had to repurpose the central admin office space for swing space while construction happened, would we then have to repurpose that again when we bring central admin back, or would the idea they would never come back into that and we'd still have to find a space permanently?
They would never come back.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. That sounded really awful. We would find lovely space for them elsewhere in the city.
I was just curious,
did not
when we use
come
the
up
term of swing space, that means that it's a temporary space that would be used for something else. So
Right. So you can see here, what's hatched is what the central office is currently using, right? So they would leave, we would repurpose these, and then we would use these as what we would call swing space, and we would take, say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 classrooms and put them here, and then we would renovate those 5 classrooms. And then we would take these classrooms and move them here and then renovate those. And so it's a little bit of a shell game, but it really can work. And we would not have recommended it if we weren't able to make it work. Some buildings it can and others just cannot. But this is all under the premise that you're not just fixing the building, that you're actually providing the educational needs to the building, which needs that 14,000 square feet of space. Yeah. And then I think just to support that a little differently at the Kennedy, we would build a science wing, because their science classrooms are significantly outdated and undersized. But before we turn those into its final science classroom, we would use this as swing space as we renovated the other spaces, right? So again, it would be that shell game, but it would be the same.
Okay, this is the teacher wait time game. Any last questions? Again, thank you for coming on a beautiful summer night. And thank you to Donna Danisco for your time tonight and educating.
So, thank you. QR code survey would be awesome. I think it's going to be open for a month or so, and this is just the beginning of the conversation. Ellen, I'll let you.
Yeah, this is the kickoff to more discussions on building needs and new buildings, and so I appreciate the excellent questions that were asked in participating in this. Please do the survey, and we'll be announcing further things as we go along before that we consider the vote in the fall. So thank you all.
Thank you.